was as though it was crying specifically.
Hello everyone, I'm Mike DeAngelo with That's Entertainment, and this is your video review of Metroid Other M by Team Ninja. With enough major franchises to deal with than many other companies, Nintendo often works in tandem with other developers to find new ways to bridge the gaps in production. This has happened with games like Kirby, which was developed by HAL Labs, and some of the Zelda games, which were helmed by Capcom. Metroid has already been worked by another developer, thanks to the surprisingly successful Retro Studios iteration, the Metroid Prime Trilogy. Metroid and Retro parted ways after the conclusion of the trilogy, so that the developer could resurrect another of Nintendo's classics with Donkey Kong. But there were still stories to tell with the Metroid franchise. Nintendo just needed to find the right company to weave the tale. They eventually landed with Team Ninja, known for their work on Ninja Gaiden. A lot of fans have been worried about the direction that the game can potentially go in. And, make no mistake, there are significant changes here. Will dedicated fans be able to accept Metroid Other M for what it is, or will they hate it for everything it's not?
But it felt momentous to me.
Following the events in Super Metroid, in which Samus Aran was saved from the Mother Brain by a baby Metroid, the galactic bounty hunter is rehabilitating herself. After warming up, she goes on her way, back into the vastness of space. Upon traveling to wherever her next destination is, she receives a distress call from an inactive ship in the middle of nowhere. Curiosity driving her forward, she heads to the huge starship with all haste. When she arrives at the bottle ship, Samus notes the presence of a Federation vessel in the docking bay. She is acquainted with the crew several moments later. Without giving too much away, it becomes apparent that there is a shared history between her and several of the soldiers. That is the premise of this new iteration of Metroid. Samus Aran is a mysterious figure in Nintendo's franchises, but Metroid Other M definitely begins to shine some light on her, and lets her become more human in contrast. The same way that people were apprehensive with Metroid Prime should repeat itself flawlessly here with Other M. Things have been so drastically changed, though not necessarily for the worse. Gone is the forced first-person view, a blessing really, since action is so quick-paced in this game, you really need time to actively move and plan escape routes. The wide-shot third-person view is ideal for this kind of game. The third-person view is not gone entirely either. While most of the game is played by holding the Wiimote sideways, if you point to the screen, you go back into the fairly familiar visor mode, where you can lock on with missiles and investigate certain objects. The investigations are far and few between, however. Most of the game is of the shoot now and ask questions later variety. Nintendo's fans can be a fickle bunch, however, and this change could be construed as a little too far off the path for the sacred Metroid brand franchise. If that isn't enough sacrilege for you, consider that the difficulty in this game is quite possibly the highest it has been since the franchise's inception. That is in no small part because of the lack of life replenishment. In prior Metroid games, when you were low on life, a quick step into another room full of enemies could shortly refill your energy. You won't find that here in Other M, finding solace only in the save rooms that you can find scattered about the ship. These aren't necessarily bad changes to the series, but it won't be hard to think of fans finding it hard to swallow initially. It can be quite an abrupt movement from Prime to Other M. Some gamers are bound to dismiss it right away, but there is a good amount of entertainment value from the game that lies beneath the surface. Now sharing the Metroid series with an already established Wii title, Other M clearly has something to stand up against. For the most part, Team Ninja does an amiable job of replacing Retro's presentation for Metroid. With the wide open shots in Other M, there is a lot to take into account. Since the majority of the game takes place within the ship, a lot of the corridors and chambers have very artificial feeling breaks and bends. The textures are fairly smooth, but on larger TVs you will notice a few jags. There are also some instances of areas that are fairly dark, and can leave you feeling a little lost, but it seems like a good way to fit the mood of the game. Characters are a little on the weak side visually, with the sole exception of Samus, who shines in any form. There is an exception with her voice work. This time around, vocals have become very active in a Metroid game. Again, this is not necessarily a bad thing, though some people might not take to Samus's voice actor immediately. She seems a little wooden, though at the same time it almost seems to fit the bounty hunter's personality. The game's sound and music are on par almost entirely with prior iterations in the series. Though there are several portions of the game where you hear and interact with other people, and even animals, The rest of the game leaves you feeling isolated and endangered, always looking for a way to progress through the solitude. With all the treasure hunting and exploring in this series, you'd be tempted to think that Metroid Other M would have a ridiculous amount of replay value. That isn't really true, as the game is decidedly linear. Some of the game feels a little intentionally lengthened, thanks to a bit of backtracking, but it definitely lacks the more drawn-out caliber of past titles. There are still a good deal of items to be found to help Samus in her plight against the ferocious creatures on the bottle ship, but the thrill of searching is mostly gone, since the game will automatically tell you when an item is in the same room as you. There are some other bonuses within the game as well, which hopefully will become a staple of the series. It's obvious that Team Ninja's approach with Metroid is quite far from Retro's take, and certainly different than Nintendo's original presentation. While certain people will condemn the game for not sticking to hallowed ground, it should be commended that Nintendo is willing to take a risk with arguably one of its most prestigious franchises. This game takes a leap, and for the most part, it lands solidly. Very fun when it isn't frustrating. Fans could be much worse off than this. That's Entertainment awards Metroid Other M a score of 9 out of 10.